Hi guys, it's Emily here at Hopscotch Interactive, and I am coming at you today to chat with you about why I think that 2023 is going to be the year of AI. So, as 2022 comes to an end, one of the big, hype cycles that we were in was absolutely the metaverse and a few other topics that, seem to have come and gone. But really, there is something I think much, much bigger and much more impactful that is coming to our business in 2023. And depending on how long you've been following it, you may have already been getting a sense of this over the last year or two. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Emily, and I am the owner of a real estate marketing agency in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I am also somebody who has been involved in virtual reality, augmented reality, real estate and marketing and photography and videography for many, many years. I gave a talk last year on 3D and 360 for real estate at the PFRE conference. And I also just gave a talk this last month in November. I guess it's still last month in November at PMRE in Las Vegas, the Metaverse, NFTs, virtual real estate, and AI. So I spent quite a bit of time deep diving into artificial intelligence and how it applies to photography. But even since I gave that talk, there have been a few developments that I think are very much worth mentioning, because I feel like I had started to scratch the surface, but I hadn't really seen all of the ways that it intersects my business and the business of other people who are doing similar things to me. So if you want to just follow everything that I'm going to be sharing with you over the coming year, please subscribe, or even just hit the like button if you are enjoying the content, you find it helpful and useful. I will be attending the Game Developers Conference. I'll be attending Geo Week. I'll be following CES. And so I will definitely be commenting throughout the coming year on a lot of these topics and things that are relevant to you and to your business. So let's get into it. So artificial intelligence is basically, has evolved to a point where it is large model training. So all of these training data, which is data that we have been inputting into the internet since it was created. And I'm old enough to remember when the internet was not even a thing that we were using yet. And I remember actually at the end of high school, my really kind of bizarre English teacher talking about, strange topics like he always did. And he said, "Has anyone heard of the internet?" And we were all like, "What are you talking about? This guy's literally off his rocker." But it was the first time I had even heard of the internet. And now, as you can see, many, many years later, it has transformed everything that we do. And artificial intelligence, which is this sort of deep learning and learning of what is all of this data and creating more or less a neural network around this all of this large data sets, and being able to query that for information and have it repeat back to us or to do tasks for us, that is very much like what a human can do. That is where we are right now. So artificial, and it's much more complicated than that, but generally speaking, AI is the ability for us to use technology and use computers to think for us and to help us think, or it's for us to give it prompts and for us to get information back that is useful to us. So now, because I work in the media industry, I have been asking the question, what is going to impact me first? And I thought it was just photography in the beginning. But now I really see and understand that AI will impact not just photography, but it will impact all media. And so let's get into some of those ways. So everything is changing, and it's changing really fast. So even as I write this, then I get new things that come up across my desk, or that I see a video, or I read an article, or I'm exposed to something and I go, this is much bigger than I thought. And that's one of the reasons why I want to share it with you. So AI in photography is the first thing that I explored. Now, as you all know, we can use AI to detect scenes or to detect, I would say, subjects in, for instance, Photoshop. And companies like Topaz AI have these kinds of services and software that allow you to do things like sharpen images, or you can use gigapixel, you can upres an image if it's fuzzy. We've all seen these photos from our parents in the 70s or whenever, and just, looking at them and going, okay, I could do something with that image. Or maybe you even had a video that came out grainy and you just want to update, or you want to upres that video. So this is something that we've been experimenting with at Hopscotch Interactive, and I can tell you that it does help. Now, is this sort of blurring the line between a helpful tool and artificial creativity? Well, that's what I think is really the debate. And so again, let me preface all of this by saying that it is not that this is a conversation that is pro AI. This is me trying to shine a light on what I think you need to see and what you need to be paying attention to in order to steer your business in the right direction, so that you're not caught off guard by these kinds of evolutions in the technology. Okay, so as I talked about in November at my talk, also, if you want to see that talk, you will have to go to the pmreconference.com website and log in with your credentials if you attended the conference, or I believe you can get access to their archives of all of the presentations, including mine, if you go to the pmreconference.com website, and then you can, I think, purchase access to the archives. So I'll put a link in the description here so that you can check that out. And but in the meantime, so Dall-E, Dall-E 2, which is owned by a company called OpenAI. Dall-E 2 is a artificial intelligence system that uses two different ways for us to currently create new images that are generated, so generative AI, generated from learning from a very large data set, basically all of the images on the internet that are publicly available, some of which actually might even be copyrighted, and that's a big area of controversy. But it is the ability for you to put in a text, and then it's text to image. So your text will result in an image. Text to image prompting. Now, for example, what I was trying to illustrate when I was speaking in November was that, look, if you want to do sky replacement, which is something that we often do in real estate, I wanted to have a Hawaii sunset sky only, golden hour twilight, some stars, fluffy clouds, pinks and purples. And so I ended up getting that image from the text that I put in, and then I went on to illustrate that here was a photograph that I had created. I had actually delivered it with a totally different sky replacement, one from our archives that I thought looked really good. But in fact, when I put in the AI sky, I thought, oh my goodness, that looks so beautiful. And so it was really this moment that I had a light bulb go on where I thought, oh my goodness, okay. But that's where it gets even more interesting, because at that time, I didn't realize that there was actually something else in the works. Now, and so we're going to get into that in a second. But now, who is OpenAI, and what is it that they are doing, and how long have they been around? So from what I understand, they've been around since 2015. They were started by some entrepreneurs, and they received a ton of funding from people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and Reid Hoffman, some of the biggest investors in the world. And they also or part of Y Combinator. And so Sam Altman, who was the former president of Y Combinator, actually, I think it was in 2020, he left Y Combinator and became the CEO of OpenAI. Now, what has happened in the meantime is that some huge partnerships and alliances have been formed, such as this one, which I am not sure many people know about. And also, Elon Musk is no longer involved, from what I understand. But this was in July, 2019. So Microsoft invests in and partners with OpenAI to support building a beneficial AGI. And so if you don't know what AGI is, AGI is this artificial general intelligence. And so instead of AI, which is sort of like we query it, we ask it to do tasks, artificial general intelligence. And when I first saw AGI, I was like, wait, like my adjusted gross income? I mean, that's where my brain goes, because that's just, what I had thought it was. But this artificial general intelligence is actually an AI system that starts to, I would say, think. It starts to have more of the qualities of what Sam Altman calls like a medium human, a person that, is like a really highly trained person on your team. Like they could replace a human being on your team in terms of the level of intelligence, because it's drawing from literally all collective intelligence that is available. And then it becomes something that is actually much more powerful in a sense than, I guess, traditional artificial intelligence. So Microsoft has this deal, and so they want to scale it using the Azure cloud platform. And it says here, we'll jointly develop it with AI supercomputing technologies, and Microsoft will become our exclusive cloud provider. And they're going to be, expanding and extending Microsoft Azure's capabilities in large-scale AI systems. So that is big because it gives exclusivity to Microsoft so that they don't have to get the data through APIs. They don't have to go through an API like everyone else in order to get this data set. And they also get the source code. So that is something that is like really big because you have to kind of like think about who are the big players and who's involved and who are the stakeholders when you start to learn about new technologies. And so then that made me go down this bit of a rabbit hole on, and we're going to get back to photography in a second. But when there's also sort of this counter argument to, well, is it still open? And they said that as they announced the partnership with Microsoft, it grants them exclusive source code and model access to GPT-3, which is, this is not Dall-E, but this is the other, so text-to-text prompting. So being able to generate text, and that's through ChatGPT. And so it's like another move away from openness into secrecy and commercialization, which it's a for-profit entity. And so here they are commercializing. And so are we surprised? Like, no, we're not surprised. These are the world's biggest investors. And even if it had tried to do the nonprofit model, but it wasn't able to succeed in that. Or, well, who knows? Maybe there are many, many reasons why they wanted to do that. But as it goes on, is OpenAI really going against its own founding values, or is this just a necessary step to fuel their progress in pursuit of reaching AGI, artificial general intelligence? And I think that it's probably a mixture of both, that you need $1 billion from Microsoft in order to fund creating artificial general intelligence. That makes sense to me. This looks like it would take every single one of the world's best PhDs, past, present, and future, in order to create something that is actually going to work like an artificial general intelligence. So, as we were talking about photography, we were talking about image-to-image prompting. We were talking about image-to-image prompting, right? Or let me think about this. We were talking about the ability to use a text to create an image. But it is also possible, for example, to take an existing image and then to iterate on that image. So if you have an image that you like, or you took an image and you want to have something that is similar to that image, but not that image, you can also do that. This will actually build on itself in just a second. You'll see where I'm heading with all of this. So also, look, if you have a real photograph, like something that I took, I have hundreds of thousands of photographs in my archives at least. And what I did is, in this example, and this was something that I illustrated earlier, was I took a real photograph plus Oda Studio's AI staging. So yes, virtual staging is something that you can do using artificial intelligence. And there is a company that is doing that very successfully right now. You can also compose music with artificial intelligence. And then what you come up with, in this case, I would argue maybe it's not even synthetic media. Well, 2/3 of it is synthetic media, but 1/3 of it is real media. And so here, for example, is the original photograph of what I took. And here is that synthetic media. So what you're looking at, I'll play it out again. What you're looking at is that image, and we'll pause it. That image from before has now been virtually staged by Otis Studio's artificial intelligence. And if you look closely, like you can see that some of this is not super clean, like these magazines are sort of representative of magazines, but they're not clean. And the table is not to scale, and this sofa is not to scale, and this dog looks very artificial, but yes, it is a staged apartment. And so I think that the idea is that you have to imagine this as like, here's what it looks like now, but what it's going to look like in the future is going to be really different. And so we're just at the very beginning of, like I said, it's like, text to text prompts or text to image prompts. And then you keep going on this and you realize, my goodness, it is really going to impact everything. So, synthetic media. Is synthetic media something that you could see that you would use in your business? Do you feel like you have a reaction to the word synthetic media? I feel like when I did research on this, I was seeing, for example, in places like China, that synthetic media was being labeled. It was being identified as, look, this contains AI. Whereas in the United States and maybe in the rest of the world, we haven't caught up yet, and we haven't started to label something as containing synthetic media. Is that something that we need to do? I know that like on the MLS for real estate, when something has been virtually staged, we usually say virtually staged or render so that people know that this is not real. And do you have a moral or ethical obligation to do so? And that's not even getting into all of the, the rights around who has this. And are we creating it responsibly? So this is, again, going down this road of, well, where is this all going to go? And I'd like to talk about the ethics of this a little bit at the end. I've already been going for 17 minutes. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's just keep going. Artificial creativity, maybe that's synonymous with synthetic media, but maybe it isn't. Maybe this is this hybrid of creativity and artificial intelligence that becomes artificial creativity. And I have to go, like, what is artificial creativity? Is that a thing? Is that something that we could actually be making and proud of or using? Or I think we're just at the beginning of trying to understand what this all means. So here's where it got really fascinating for me. And this is something that I discovered just recently. And that was that earlier this year, I think actually either at the end of October or the beginning of November, there is a plugin that was introduced to Photoshop called Stability. Now, the Stability plugin, if you look here and you go into the Adobe Cloud, Creative Cloud, and you look here in the left, I typed in the word stability, and it came up here. It's a stable diffusion inside of Photoshop. Now, there are not that many people who have actually installed it, and it was created by Christian Cantrell, who works for Stability AI. Okay, so that is very interesting to me because Christian Cantrell was a employee at Adobe for, I want to say, at least 10 years. I don't know how long he worked at Adobe, but it was a really long time. And he also was one of the engineers there. So fascinatingly, Christian has left Adobe to focus on the Stability plugin, which is bringing in directly into Photoshop, your Photoshop that you have on your computer, this new plugin that is basically putting artificial intelligence right into Photoshop. Now, Stable Diffusion is one of the ways that you can use text to image. So you can create text to image using Stable Diffusion. And And you can also use Dall-E here to do text to image. So in this example, which is what I just did, is I had an image here, which was like a landscape, right? So it's land that we are marketing. And but I felt like I could do a little bit better with the sky. And if you look here, you can sort of see the prompt strength, number of images. You can set parameters like the pixels and what the seed image is going to be. You can even use this selected layer as the prompt or to seed the diffusion. And so this just opens up so many possibilities. And when I did that, you can see that I replaced the sky here and I set the diffusion to, let's see, it was like at 50%. So it used the image in the background. It used the existing image. I selected the sky, and so I selected that and then was able to bring in another layer this image of the pink clouds, which was basically just a variation on what I had already shot. Here it is again. And so this is Stability AI. And from what I understand, this week, in fact, Christian is going to be releasing not just the plugin, but the ability for you to make presets for AI in Photoshop. So if you think that we are going to be able to look at media at all the same for in the future, like it is not, we are past that point. We're past the point of media being the same, because I believe that media is forever changed. In the same way that Photoshop changed everything, this is going to change everything inside of Photoshop. And then you have to carry that forward to go, well, if stability and stable diffusion can come into into the Photoshop app, what happens when it gets into the entire Adobe Creative Cloud? Like, what about when it gets into Premiere Pro? What about when it gets into Illustrator? What about when it starts to really just become this hybrid between all of the media that we create? And that is where my mind just was like exploding. And this is not something that is the same. Like, we're not talking about like face detection or like this. I'm old enough to remember when Jib Jab came out, and you might think this is random, but just to show you that like this was a big deal. And I remember the first time I got a Christmas card with my friends like as dancing elves, and I thought it was like the most hilarious thing. But that was what, like 2006, I think. Yeah, so since 2006. And so we've had these kinds of like, replacing the face, but we're not even talking about face replacement and face detection. We're actually talking about so much more than that. We're talking about actually being able to use natural language to change images and to change or to write for you, such as with ChatGPT. So there is, in fact, an 800-pound gorilla in all of this, which is that it's not just going to be that a startup is going to be leading the way for the rest of the world. In fact, for many years, Google has already been working on a lot of this, and actually a lot of the things that OpenAI built is based on research that was made public by Google in 2017. It's called Transformer, right? And so this Transformer research is what OpenAI and I think BERT, these natural language neural networks, were using in order to understand language better, and which has enabled us to now understand how to turn language into images or in fact into video. So this is where I think it really starts to go into an entirely like brave new world. And that is because AI plus video and what Google has built with their Imagine engine is really the huge game changer, at least for the current media climate and the current media environment. So they developed this engine called Google Imagine, which is basically photorealism plus language understanding. So that semantic understanding of language. And Douglas Eck presented this. He is like the head of Google Brain at Google, working on neural networks and working on artificial intelligence, and specifically applying it to things like video. And so a couple months ago, or earlier this year, they released Lambda, which is their natural language processing system, and they can use that to write. You can use it to chat with. If you wanted to test this out, I believe you can access this through the Google AI Test Kitchen, which is an app that's available on the Play Store, and so there are, and also on the Apple Store as well. But it's just like a basic introduction to learn about AI concepts and to maybe even show people how AI works. It's like a little demonstration of certainly all of the other things that are going to be coming. So, for example, he talked about video, and this is what really blew my mind, is because they took Phonak, which is one of their other language systems, and the Imagine video engine, and they combined those. And so this is incredible, like using natural language to describe a scene, and then that can be converted using diffusion into a video. So imagine like the most beautiful poem, your favorite text, a letter from somebody describing something, and this can be turned into video up to 25 minutes long. That is a huge deal. It is a huge deal for media creators. It is a huge deal and has big, big impacts for everyone. So, for example, even though they haven't released it to the public and it is still, being held back, they did share with us, however, their research paper that goes into this. And it's high definition video generation with diffusion models. So this paper is available. You can download it. The things that I thought that were the most interesting about it was sort of the illustrations of how you can, write something like wooden figurine on a surfboard in space. And you can get something very specific, something that previously you would have had to have created with Photoshop, or you would have had to have searched the internet and seen if there was a mashup of these things. But instead, just imagine this being something that ends up one day in Google search. Like, you've got your Google search, and then you've got your Google Imagine or your Google Google Imagine search. And then you can, instead of searching images, you can create images or create video. This is what will happen in the future. And, maybe it's something very simple like a coffee cup, but that would be like the B-roll that you needed to create your film. So I think that we are just on the precipice of beginning to understand what the impacts will be with the creation of art. I want to say artificial creativity, but in this case, this is absolutely synthetic media. There's that coffee cup. And so, but Google has not released it. And one of the reasons they didn't release it, and this is illustrated in the paper, is that there is a huge societal impact. So what they say is that, it's made tremendous progress, especially in recent text-to-image models. But video generative models can be used to positively impact society, for example, by amplifying and augmenting human creativity. However, these generative models may also be misused, for example, to generate fake, hateful, explicit, or harmful content. And we've taken steps to minimize these concerns, but, it's not a guarantee. And so there are several important safety and ethical challenges remaining. And then it concludes, we have decided not to release the Imagine video model or its source code until these concerns are mitigated. So they do, however, show a lot of the code here, and sort of how the temporal factors play a role, such as the diffusion models being generated and then how they are deconstructed over time and then how they are reconstructed. It's all super fascinating stuff. I don't have a PhD in mathematics. I don't have a PhD in stable diffusion or on any of these things. But even for somebody like myself, I still found it really fascinating to look and to try to understand and parse, like, okay, they know that this is something that they can do. They've shown that it's possible. They've proven it. But how are we going to make ourselves as a society ready for it? And so, and one of the other details that I thought was amazing was like it gets into the specifics on, with the entire cascade. Imagine Video generates high def 1280 by 768 videos at 24 frames per second for 128 frames. So that's just one diffusion, okay? But then there are, you layer these upon each other, and then you have, up to 25 minutes of footage. So that's where we are at today in 2022. Just imagine where it's going to go with the compute power, with all of the cloud computing that this will be tapping into. I think it's just mind-boggling. And not only that, if it's AI, we've already seen AI plus photography. We've seen AI plus music. Now we've seen AI plus video. What we're also going to see is AI plus 3D models. So text-to-NeRF, neural radiance fields. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that in addition to all of the digital media, pixel media, there will also be voxel media, volumetric imagery that will be created by artificial intelligence, and that is going to come in the form of 3D models. So prepare yourself for a world where we will have 3D content as well that has been generated by AI. Okay, and just as I was reading that and learning about that, my friend Tom Emmerich, who many of you may know because he works at 8th Wall, which was acquired by Niantic, he posted about this, creating usable 3D models with generative AI. So Masterpiece Studio is a startup that is actually already creating game engine ready models using AI. So I think that if you are a game designer, if you're a game developer, if you're a student, if you're an architect, if you want to quickly iterate on something, AI for creatives will help you in many regards. But there's always a trade-off. So I'm very interested to see how this will play out. Now, ChatGPT, text, writing, this is AI and language AI and script. I've been following that a little bit longer than the other things, and mostly because I came across this really fascinating article in the San Francisco Chronicle last year. And what it chronicled was the story of a man who lost his fiancée. She died very young, and as part of his grief and his grieving process, he knew someone who was a programmer and had access to, let's see, I think it's on the next thing. Yeah, so to Project December, which was powered by ChatGPT or GPT-3. And he was able to have conversations. He trained ChatGPT-3 on the text messages from his deceased partner, and was able to have conversations with the AI as if it were Jessica. Okay, so this is amazing, and it was incredible, and the reporting on that story is so well done. So I'm not even going to try to go into like an opinion on what he did and everything, but just I think you should read it for yourself. I will also put a link to that in the description for this talk. And just know that one of the things that really piqued my interest when I read about that, though, was that this, and so I copied it here, and it was that basically they kept GPT-2. So it says the company initially delayed the release of a previous version, GPT-2, and access to the more advanced GPT-3 has been limited to private beta testers because it was kept under wraps, citing safety concerns. And so you can imagine that the safety concerns were obviously huge. And this is what we keep coming back to, which is that AI does ask, it begs the question, how will this be managed from an ethical standpoint, from a legal standpoint, moral standpoint? And I really want to know that we are thinking about these things as we move forward. So I'm actually, in many regards, applauding Google for holding back on the Imagine engine But keep in mind, they're not a startup, and they are not trying to 100x their investors. I mean, they are, but not in the same way that a startup would have that pressure. So the fact that OpenAI released GPT-3 so soon after it was just in this beta testing makes me think that there were commercial pressures that were there and that were very real. And so it brings up for me what has been a 100-year-old debate. And that is that, my college thesis was on German modernism, the cyborg genesis, and ambivalence about mechanization. So basically, in 100 years ago in Weimar, Germany, in Weimar, Europe, there was this debate raging at the time about, do we embrace technology or do we abhor technology because it is dehumanizing the work that we do and is turning us into the machine. And that was really illustrated in the 1927 film by Fritz Lang, Metropolis, where the cyborg Maria is sort of the locus of the, fears around technology dehumanizing us, and sort of evil technological Maria brings the downfall of, of the entire system. And so I think that we are sort of in the same, 100 years later, we're still facing this, but we're at a point where the machines have, and technology has advanced to such a point, but yet we're still lacking in being able to understand and comprehend what the impacts will be for society. But I don't think that the thing to do is to ignore it. I think the thing to do is to shine a light on it and look at it and learn from it. So, if Google is working on this and they are trying to, stay true to their principles, they illustrated Douglas also shared the AI principles from Google. And so these are noble principles. I hope that they will stand by these. I feel like it was reiterated over and over again by all of the speakers who gave those presentations at AI 2022 for Google. So that would be something that I can hope continues to happen. And, in the meantime, what else is out there, hopefully, thinking about these things? Well, the US government did commission a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. I thought that was fascinating. Many Americans don't know about this, but there is a blueprint. There are several chapters where it goes into ways that we need to think about how AI can impact us and what those challenges will be. And so hoping to make the automated systems work for the American people. And one of the highlights for me was talking about discrimination and the ways that there is discrimination already built into, artificial intelligence, and that we need to work that out before it really works for all people. So I feel like, this is on the right path, but it is not law yet. And it is certainly not something that we can rely on in any regard to help guide us, other than saying, look, there are many people thinking about this, but yet they have not yet taken action. So, but I recommend that you do check this out. Definitely go to the website and see what the government has proposed or is proposing. I think it's really fascinating. Especially because, and I didn't even mention this before, but it's not just Microsoft and OpenAI. In fact, OpenAI and Shutterstock also inked a deal in October. But here's where I think it actually got something right. And that is that Shutterstock, being a gigantic database for stock photography, is enabling OpenAI to query and learn and build, images just from its stock photography, and then it's allowing the creators to earn a percentage based on how much was based on their stock photography. So for me, I feel like, okay, this is in the right direction. Creators will get maybe a tiny piece, but they will get a piece nonetheless of a percentage of contributing to these models. And I think that that for me was like a really great sign that, maybe there can be some optimism, and maybe there can even be ways for creators to benefit in all of this. So please leave some comments if you have ideas and thoughts about that. In the meantime, I have also joined the XR Guild. The XR Guild is run by numerous colleagues in the metaverse space, and they also have written a set of principles. And so I highly recommend that you go to the XR Guild website and check that out. They also have a Discord with fascinating threads and general threads, and I hope that this will become a lobby for good, for the metaverse, and also potentially crossing over into AI as well. And last but not least, I did have the free time over the break to dive deeply into what Douglas Rushkoff wrote about many of these things. He has an entire chapter on artificial intelligence in his book, Team Human. And so this is his manifesto for how we should, think about bringing the humanity into technology. And I think that it's really important. I love Douglas Rushkoff. I first heard him speak when I was working in the gaming industry at the Ziff Davis Media Summit, probably in 1999 or 2000. And he is an incredible mind. He's written 20 books on various subjects around technology and social science. And so I think if you don't know Douglas Rushkoff, please check it out. Check out Team Human, because as I was reading about all of these things happening and I was feeling very overwhelmed by it, I was really glad that I had a little dose of optimism for humanity coming through the pages of this Team Human book by Douglas Rushkoff. So other things that you can do, I will be curating an AI news playlist here on the YouTube channel. So any of the videos that have influenced me or that I thought were noteworthy, you'll find them on my new AI playlist. So check that out. And here's a little sparkle for you. I hope that this ignited some ideas for you for 2023 for how you might be able to use maybe this stability plugin, maybe stability presets, maybe Imagine will be something that you can access via Google Play's Test Kitchen in the near future. So as we, sort of go flying into the new year and we look back at 2022 and all of the amazing things we learned, definitely keep the spark alive for being curious about how technology can impact your business, how it will change what you do and how you think about it, and hopefully reveal new opportunities for you to grow and to learn. So with that, wishing everybody a happy new year. I'm so grateful I was able to get a lot of comments from people and grow the channel this year. It's been wonderful, and I look forward to everything that 2023 has in store. I will be I'll be following CES. I will be attending Geo Week. I will be at GDC, and I'm sure I will be at the AREA Awards and PMREs. So absolutely, this year is going to be full of exciting new conversations and ideas, and I really look forward to connecting with each and every one of you, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful new year.